Hey guys, it's Judy from Nutrition with Judy. All right, I hope you guys are having a good week. Please make sure to subscribe, hit the bell. This allows me to provide you more free content. Okay, so today I'm very excited. I have with me Ede, also known as Black Carnivore. We are going to talk about a lot of things about healing, about carnivore, about the community. So I can't wait for you guys to see our video. Hey guys, it's Judy from Nutrition with Judy. And today I have with me Ede Fox. I'm so excited to talk with her. And so Ede, people that are watching that don't know you, if you can just share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am the Black Carnivore. I have been doing carnivore since December of 2017. So I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary. And I've just had a great healing from starting to eat this way. And so it's something that I really dove into and tried to understand. I started my social media account on Instagram as the Black Carnivore to just kind of help me document my journey. And from there, really started to gather and build a community. So yeah, I am the Black Carnivore. I try to create a community and a space for, any other Black person who's interested in or wondering if anybody else is doing the carnivore diet. And just trying to make information as easy and accessible for anybody who might be interested in more information.
That's really good. So if you could share a little bit about your journey. So, were you struggling with metabolic disease or something? And then what got you and what had you find carnivore?
Yeah, I that's a great question. I, have struggled with my weight for years and also having allergies and asthma and eczema, though not really connecting any of these things. I just thought these were all, just sort of separate problems. And, so I struggled for a long time and never, sometimes things would be more even and sometimes they'd be a lot worse, but I never, really got things really in good control. So that was a problem for me. And it was, I think in 2015 when I finally hit the peak in my weight and also not only in my weight, but also just not feeling good. I was exhausted all the time. I had a lot of aches and pains. I actually had some arthritis in my hand, which I was loath to admit, but there were a lot of aches and pains. And I kind of was like, well, I guess this is middle age. This is what it looks like. But at a certain point, I just decided, if this is what middle age is, I want to, I just want to start higher on the hill. So I decided to, really turn around my health and kind of figure out what were the things that I could do to improve. And I had done keto years before and had some success with it, or I guess it was paleo at the time. We didn't call it keto. But I'd had some success with it. So I finally decided to do that and I started to lose weight and I started to feel better. And then I was really curious about the science and what I was doing and why it was working. So I spent a lot of time doing a lot of that kind of research and, really became captivated by what I saw. And, it helped me to kind of understand what was happening, make tweaks so that I could improve and and help other people. Really started to see me succeed, so then wanted to know what I was doing and how do they do it. So I sort of had to become a little bit of an expert in my own circle and my own community.
So how much weight did you lose throughout the process?
I lost 80 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was definitely significant. And during that time, I also had started to weight lift. So I haven't been doing that since. But, my body and shape really changed dramatically. And if you look at my old pictures, it's just nice, night and day. But, the benefits that I saw from carnivore, like I had already reached my goal weight while I was still keto.
Oh,
But
okay.
when yeah. So going carnivore for me wasn't so much about weight loss as it was about further healing. And that has been the healing. Going carnivore has been just dramatic for me. But I don't think, people don't always it's hard to explain that part to people. People see weight loss, they see a number that is different, but they can't really see that you're have less allergies, or you're not really using your asthma inhaler, or that you're happy.
Yeah.
Just generally can deal with life and the
Yeah.
difficulties that it presents.
Yeah, I think people like to see those kind of like before and after pictures, like those inspirations, but there's more to carnivore and any diet and lifestyle change than just weight loss, right? Like the mental health aspect is so huge. And I used to always tell my husband, I wish you can go in my head and kind of see the difference. And, no one, you can talk about it all day long, but no one knows, right? It's not as dramatic as like a before and after picture. So, you talked a little bit about, so you had a little bit of arthritic feeling, maybe some of your mental health, asthma, and you said eczema, right? Were those like your significant kind of healing from going from keto to carnivore?
Allergies in total. So a lot of these things improved when I went keto. So it wasn't that I was starting at ground zero when I switched to carnivore, but they didn't completely resolve themselves. So one of the problems I had before I went keto is I had lost my sense of smell, and I was living with a dog at the time, and I'm allergic to dogs. So I was just completely blocked up, couldn't smell anything. And just even being away from the dog helped with the smell, but my allergies were just raging and out of control. So going keto helped with that, but I still continued to take Flonase for a long time, not knowing it was a steroid. I took, a lot of, Benadryl and Sudafed and all that kind of stuff. And I was still taking that through being keto. But once I went carnivore, that's really when all of that stuff, like I just didn't need it anymore. I didn't think about it. And I actually put up a post on Instagram not too long ago showing my medicine shelf of my kitchen cabinet. And I had moved all that stuff to a higher shelf because I needed more room, and then forgot about it. So I was going up there to make more space, and found I had all of this stuff, and realized how much of it I was using every day for years, how much money I spent on it, all of that. And now it's all gone. None of it do I need to use, including my asthma inhaler. I haven't used that. I have one because it seems,
yeah, just in case,
responsible thing to do. But yeah, I haven't used it.
That's amazing. I have a graphic in Carnivore Care. I'll send it to you, but it talks about how all medications also deplete you of nutrients. And I think there's one for allergies in there, but I mean, I believe it. It's, so while you were kind of medicating one area of a symptom, you're probably depleting your body of other nutrients. And so that's amazing that you got off all that. So how long has it been since you've like used an inhaler or used Flonase?
So when I first started carnivore, I started sort of randomly. I had been hearing about it on and off over the years. I think I first stumbled on Charles Washington's blog, like maybe in 2008 or 2009.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I was a member of it for a little while, but I just could not wrap my head around like vegetables being bad. And like most Americans, I was making an effort to be more healthy. So I, tried to have kale multiple times and lots of dark leafy greens, and I tried to eat the rainbow. So it was like I just couldn't like figure out how I could not eat vegetables.
I know, I get it. I get that.
Yeah. So I was okay with fruit. Like I could get why fruit, like, once I understood that, it's the antioxidant that makes that color, then, I could just find that color in something that's not sweet and get a lot less calories. So that I was fine with. Like never eating fruit again. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But not vegetables? No. And then, but over the years, I kept hearing Amber O'Hearn speak every now and then about what she had healed from. And she's just so, smart and scientific and just a very critical thinker. And so I was just like, if she's finding something of value here, there's something of value here, even if I don't recognize what it is. So I never, completely like shut it out and threw it out the window. And then, but I was like looking to lose a little bit more weight in the end of 2017, and I came across somebody's blog. It was like they were talking about the beef and butter fast, and you basically eat like a cup of ground beef crumbles with a couple of tablespoons of butter for lunch and for dinner, and you do this for 3 days. And so I decided to do it, and just sort of launch back into keto. And then on day 2, I was like, oh my God, I'm eating this way the rest of my life. I mean, I felt amazing. I couldn't believe how much more energy I had, and how much better I felt. And so I knew that was it. I was not going to go back to vegetables or anything like that.
And then when did your scent come back?
Well, so that came back pretty soon, just out moving away from the dog. That helped a lot, but it has never been very acute. But
Okay.
now on Carnivore, it is very acute. Like I smell things, down the block. Somebody's walks out with like, I don't know, a perfume, and I'm like, I can smell this half a block away. Like I really, I taste things, and when people say like they smell like wine and they taste all of these different notes, and I'd be like, yeah, of course, I taste the vanilla and tobacco and all that, whatever. Never could smell any of that. But now, like I can smell things, and I really can smell the the intense the very particulars and the fine details of the scent. Actually, one of the members of my community, her name is at Life Junkie, I think it is, or the Life Junkie. She's a perfumist. She makes sense. Okay. And I'm like, I would never have been able to do that job ever if I hadn't been eating carnivore, because I can't smell anything.
You know what's so interesting is that for some people, the scent becomes much stronger. Even for myself, I didn't really have like allergies or like struggles with, smelling things, but my sense of smell is as strong as when I was pregnant. And I could smell, perfume, like some of it gets me so intoxicated. And it makes sense because a lot of our smell, if we have anything that is kind of toxic to our nose, our, liver and our detox pathways has to clear it. And as we are not eating and inundating our body with junk, our detox pathways are a lot more clear. And I think it makes sense why then we can smell a lot more, right? So I'm the same way. I smell perfume, and now it's pretty strong for me. Like it's, sometimes it's a little bit too intense, and I could smell all the different, like I can smell if someone has onions like from a mile away. It drives me crazy. But I don't think I was like that before. But now if like my husband has garlic or just certain, like smells, it's just that much more heightened. So I can't imagine for you, like, it's fascinating because
garlic was one of the first things to go. So when I did that beef and butter fast, there was no spices, nothing. It was just salt, beef, and butter. And then I think, and I was only supposed to do it 3 days and ended up doing it 2 weeks, but because I just loved it. It tastes good. And so at some point though, I decided, well, let me try putting some spices in. And garlic was the first thing I picked up because I always liked garlic, and I put garlic in it, and it was so noxious and bitter, and I have not eaten garlic since then. So it's been almost 3 years, and I have no intention of ever eating garlic again.
Yeah, I think there are certain people, I think I talk about it in the book. I'm like starting to blur, is it in my blog or my book? But there are some people that are highly sensitive to garlic, and it's certain anti-nutrients. And then there's some people that don't mind it at all. I think I'm more like you. It's just a little bit of garlic just makes me, it's too intense for me, but some people don't mind it at all. And then some people actually kind of get sick from it. Like they feel bloat and stuff. So it's really interesting. But yeah, it's so fascinating to me that you're mentioning how, just being around a dog made you feel better, or like getting away from a dog. And now you have a dog. And
I know, right?
So that's why when you first said that, I was like, wait, what? So, I mean, that is so powerful, right? So
yeah,
one animal that used to make you sick and you had to stay away from to maintain your allergies or your health, now you have a dog and it's totally fine, and he's like getting in your jello, right? So it's so amazing. That's so
actually, she used to, and it used to be so bad that like this was my mom's dog. My mom passed early this year, so now she's my dog. But I would get in the car sometimes, with my mom, and well, Ruby would come up and like say hello and lick my face, and wherever she licked, I'd have like a red streak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was really bad. I mean, I was allergic to both the dander and the dog saliva. So, I would never want her to lick me, but that's what she would do. So it was definitely bad. So, but going carnivore really just removed all of that, all of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, and now I live with a dog and it's not a problem at all. So that's a big deal. And, I like dogs. Like it was kind of like, oh man, I can't have a dog. Now she is a poodle mix, so she's a little more hypoallergenic. But like I said, I tested when I went to the allergist. I tested as allergic to the dog saliva as well as the fur. So the fur part, maybe she doesn't have that, but I still reacted to her saliva. So
Right, right.
yeah.
That's so powerful. So now you do a little coaching, right? So you work with, do you work with like new carnivores? I mean, what's kind of your practice, if you can tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, so on a broader scale, I really just decided to try to document my journey. When I first started, I had a really hard time conceptualizing like what you actually eat in a day. I mean, I know it's like eat animal products, but it's like, what does that look like on a plate? My grandmother said have a starch, a vegetable, and a meat. So like if there's no starch and vegetable, like do I put two kinds of meat? Is there a side of meat with the regular main meat? So I really wanted to just take pictures of what I was doing and let other people see it or critique it or get ideas or whatever. And so that's kind of where it started. And then I decided to start a YouTube channel to try to help other people because it really is a lot, I think, to go carnivore. It requires a major mindset shift that I don't even think you need to do with keto.
Yeah.
So, so that's why I was trying to create these resources. And then over time, I really started to, develop a community. And I named myself Black Carnivore because I specifically wanted, if there are any other Black people who were eating this way, and who wanted to know if there was anybody else like them, that they'd be able to find me. So that's how many of the people have found me, and I continue to try to create content to create a community for that place. And so there's just a lot of people in the community who are just starting, they're healing things, they're looking for advice, support, and like I said, even though I don't write about it or I'm not likely to write a textbook on carnivore. I have, spent a lot of time really diving into the science of it all because I find it so interesting. And in my former life before all of this, I was getting a PhD in anthropology, so I definitely have an aptitude for doing research. So I tried to make that knowledge available to people in my community who might need help getting started or just overcoming some of the more traditional obstacles that we see. And and I think a lot of times too, I mean, we are on virgin territory, so it's one thing to sort of know the mechanisms for why something should or shouldn't happen, but that doesn't mean you necessarily understand like what's actually happening. So
Right.
there is a certain amount of like asking questions and just being curious about what the person is doing and helping them to kind of take a step back and look at the total picture of what they're doing and try to understand, make connections between what they're eating, some of their behaviors, sleep, and stress and all of that as well, to kind of get a whole picture on what can help them move more readily towards their goals. So that's kind of what I kind of do, is kind of help people see how do they make carnivore fit into their lifestyle and help them reach their goals while not sort of being slavish to a set of rules that you
Yeah.
might see.
And I think that's really good. I commend you for all that you're doing. Not everyone, like I always say that, if we have kind of like God-given talents, we should just use that. And, I don't think I'm the best on YouTube. So I don't I don't put my resources all in like YouTube videos, right? For example, but I like doing interviews because I love talking with people and connecting and feeling that connection. But and so when you are sharing this for community and like what makes sense in terms of like your pictures and what meals are and just getting down to really like practical and useful tips, that's really beneficial. And a thing that we don't talk a lot about in the nutrition space is, not everyone is a certain kind of color or race or, even like economic status, right? So we don't talk a lot about that. And to build a community, because everyone is susceptible to metabolic disease, right? It doesn't matter whether you're white, Black, Asian, Mexican, whatever. We all get impacted. And there's just sometimes and like I noticed it even me entering, and obviously I'm not, I'm Asian. And so there's just a kind of the whole view of nutrition. A lot of times the way that it's kind of depicted is a Caucasian person, right? But that's not everybody in America. And so we need representatives, right? So I love that Jason Fung is Asian, right? So like he's this fasting guru, very respected in the nutrition space. And, and as nutrition is growing, you see other, classes and ethnicities. And I think it's so important because sometimes we may watch something, right? Like my mom, for example, if I didn't do this, if I had her just watch like, any doctor talk about carnivore, she would say, well, I grew up eating rice, so that doesn't work for me, right? Like I can't relate to you. But if I'm like, hey mom, well, I'm your daughter and this has worked for my mental health and that's why she really tried it. It's relatable, right? It's this essence of, okay, maybe I can do it too and it can work for me. I can relate to who you are. And so I think it's huge that you're creating a community. We should see no color and all that. But the truth is, when people are looking for diets that may work or serve them or heal them, sometimes they want that relatability, and it makes full sense. And I think, doing that in a space that's not as kind of diverse in a sense, like I applaud you for doing that. It takes a lot of effort, and there's a lot more like climbing a hill than anything. And I think for you to do that is huge. Like you're making, huge impacts and saving so many lives. And I think that's a really important thing you're doing.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. When I first started doing this, well, the first thing that I did was, just to create the Instagram account and just to have the pictures and everything like that. And that was really great. But then it was earlier this year in, I think it was like April or May, that I started thinking about, after the illness of our time and everyone being forced onto Zoom. And, once I kind of got used to it, it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of awesome. I set up like a family Zoom, and we have been meeting, every Friday since March. And I've gotten to know relatives that I didn't know at all before, and brought together, relatives that, just would never have known each other. So it was really great. And I thought, why can't I use this for the Black carnivore community? Yeah. So that's when I started thinking about it, and I started reaching out to everybody that I could, find that was, a Black person and who had expressed interest in doing carnivore. And so I finally got something scheduled in early June, and it was just an amazing experience to just look out on the screen and see all of these Black faces of people who were doing carnivore. And everyone was equally amazed, like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. And, it's so great to have this community. And so from there, we have set up group coaching calls. So 3 times a week, we have a Zoom call for anybody who needs it. We have a Facebook group, and that creates another place where people can communicate and, provide each other the support that they need. And I also have a podcast, which is where, I'm going to be releasing my podcast interview with you, where, I basically just share testimony. Because I think providing all the science, I mean, you are doing that. There are others who are doing that, and that's really can be helpful. But in terms of me deciding whether I'm going to do this diet, like, it's going to be, you know, hearing somebody who looks like me, who's like, hey, I did this and it worked, just like you said. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just provide this testimony, show people who have decided to do this and how it has impacted their life, and wherever they are on the journey. And so, you know, I really enjoy doing that, and I will continue to do that as much as I can on the podcast. And I might also, you know, do more things on the podcast. The YouTube channel, I love doing video. I really do enjoy it. So it's an opportunity to teach and to you know, to share also my experiences. And so there's 2 videos. I created a series called Getting Started on Carnivore. And so there's the 2 main videos, short, you know, 5 or 6 minutes, which just tell you exactly what do you buy, you know, when you go to the grocery store, what do you eat, and what are some of the common problems and the common solutions. And, you know, to my mind, the main things that I see people tripping up on are salt, eating enough, and maybe the stomach acid issues, and trying to assist that. And then there are other things that can happen where you might need a little bit more specificity, but on your own, that covers like the big majority of it. So I try to provide that information for people, and you know, and then just a space where they can get support, because you know, as you talked about, we've talked about addiction, and we've talked about sugar addiction, and then just the world that we live in. We're living in a world where it is not normal to not eat sugar. And at every meal, and at every time you buy food, like you can't be guaranteed that there's no sugar in it.
Right.
So I feel like, you know, we need a little bit of a community and a you know, 12-step program, because it's really hard. And even I bought some mustard, and it just said mustard on the front, and when I ate it, it was sweet. There was honey in it. And I was like, why is this not on the label? Like, are we just now expecting mustard to be sweet? Like, but that is the world that we live in. It is, everything is expected to be sweetened. So, so yeah, that's why I created the community. And I think I know this is a long-winded response, but in particular for the Black community, I mean, metabolic disease is rampant, and it is the cause of the top 4 reasons that, you know, Americans die. So I think it's really important to deal with those metabolic diseases. And, you know, the science has pretty clearly shown that, you know, a ketogenic diet, one where you're burning fat for energy rather than sugar, can turn around those metabolic, you know, diseases and prevent, you know, the major diseases. So that is what I push. And I feel that people do best with it when they are very strict and they go carnivore. And, you know, there are definitely people in our community that swing between strict, moderate, and relaxed. They go back and forth. Maybe it's daily, maybe it's by, you know, a meal, maybe, you know, it's every once in a while. They'll incorporate things like avocado or olives. But, you know, we do encourage you to do a whole foods, meat-based diet. I do strict carnivore, meat, salt, and water at this point. And I do talk about that, so I try to provide leadership for that. But there are people that, you know, want to have a little bit more flexibility. But once they go strict carnivore, you know, you can never unknow how much better you feel. It's just then a matter of deciding how good you want to feel all the time.
I totally agree with that. You know, I think people want to dabble, and you know, some people just don't want to give up all the other, you know, facets of food other than meat. And so I think even us thinking like the give up or I can't eat that, like it's all mindset. And so some people, I believe that really they just have to hit rock bottom to say, you know what, I am going to try full carnivore, and then feel and reap the full benefits, and then understand from there, okay, do I want to add, you know, any other like seasonings and vegetables? But you have to get to that point, I think, to really know that you're making this conscious effort to add avocados. Some people will just never fully give it up, and then never know what kind of like that zero carb zen is. But you have to be there then to know. So for me, for example, like when I first went carnivore, I had to give up everything, because that was kind of how I got over my sugar addiction. But as I healed, and I would, you know, so I would have this high anxiety where if there was any food that had any kind of sugar or seasoning, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's going to make me kind of fall back into my sugar addiction. But I'm not at that place anymore. So if there is like, we go to like a barbecue place and there's a little bit of sugar on the rub, like I can eat it. I'd have no issues. But I notice immediately that I don't feel as clean as when I eat pure carnivore. So that's just kind of where you just have to experience the zero carbs then. And I think then decide if, you know, where you want to be in like kind of the spectrum of optimal health. Like if you're okay being at like an 8 instead of a 10, but it's worth it for maybe some of the vegetables, then so be it, right? But at least experience the zero carbs then, and then kind of, you know, play with it. But there are a lot of people that never get that zero carbs then. And, you know, but, you know, maybe one day they will, maybe they never need to, I don't know, but it's, I totally can relate to what you're saying. But, you know, again, like everyone's journey is their own, and, you know, it's just, they have to find their own path. So when you are coaching your clients and your community, what are some of the biggest struggles you see? And then how do you kind of work towards fixing those kind of struggles?
Well, actually, like I said, the reason I made that video about what are some of the common problems and the common solutions, it's because those really were the biggest struggle. And I think particularly in the Black community, there's so much high blood pressure and so much stroke that people are really afraid of salt. And so trying to re-educate people on that is a big deal. And it's really important because you can't do this diet without eating adequate salt. You're going to feel, not only you feel bad, but, you know, it's actually dangerous. So trying to get past that for people. And, you know, and of course, there's a lot of people, I mean, certainly I tell everybody, you got to go see your doctor. If you do this diet, it's going to change how much blood pressure medication and, you know, and diabetes medication you're going to need. And it's going to happen pretty quickly. So you can't just, you know, not deal with that.
Right.
But there are also so many people who are not compliant with these medications. So it's kind of like, I need to, you know, I kind of have to think about those things too as I'm talking with them. And it's like, you know, if you're not on your blood pressure medication, then you really need to do this, because you can't be like, you can't have your blood pressure that high like that anyway. Yeah. But particularly now, as you know, in the state of the world that we're in, and the, you know, disease that we're dealing with, it is most important for the Black community to get the metabolic stuff under control, because that is actually contributing to the worst outcomes for people who get sick at this time. So, you know, I try to, you know, sort of get that across as well. And that is, you know, for our community, it's a really big deal. And many of us have seen, you know, people who have died, and it's really been, you know, a challenge. And I don't know that I definitely am not feeling that there is enough respect within the carnivore community for people who have been, you know, who've gotten ill, and those who have died. You know, it's a tragedy. It's like what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, for me, I think, I, you know, work with most people that are sick and that have metabolic disease or have serious autoimmune issues. So it's not about if they want to eat something, they just can't, because otherwise they will be really sick. Or if they eat a certain amount of fruit or honey, they will get sick. And so when all of that information was coming out, you know, that's where kind of I took the stand of, well, I work with a lot of people that have metabolic disease and they don't have the option to do that, right? But then when they are starting to get fear mongered, where it's like, but you need carbs for thyroid or hormone health, then they're like, okay, well, maybe I need to include a little bit, even though I'm diabetic, because I'm being told that my hormones will shut off, right? So it's just unfortunate that there's like this misinformation out there, and especially it's not really speaking to the bio-individual person and just saying this blanket statement of, oh, sometimes it's good to go in and out of ketosis versus like being a sugar burner. Yeah. Well, that may be true if you're metabolically healthy. And I think that is a good thing, right? For optimal health, you want to have flexibility. But if you are like my mom, she can't have it, right? If she does, like immediately at night, she starts like coughing again and like having, and if she does it for several days, I've seen it, you know, she'll get like the asthma signs. And so we have to be mindful of what we preach, because and we have to be mindful of every single kind of bio individual person. And so maybe put a disclaimer, right? So, hey, like fruit is, or vegetables are okay if XYZ, right? And so I know for certain with people that have metabolic disease, I don't know if, eating less PUFAs or eating certain things will reduce your amount or sensitivity to fruits. But I just have a hard time believing that if you incorporate like carrots or fruit or something, you'll make yourself metabolically healthier in terms of your thyroid health. It's just, I haven't seen it. In my practice, I have more people that are getting off thyroid medication and healing on a carnivore diet than people that need to add back carbs. So it's just,
right.
we need to message appropriately, right? So know your audience and give context. Like that's why I like to explain a lot, because you need context, right? You can't just say, yes, fruit is good for you. Fruit is good for some people for some reasons, but for the general population that go carnivore, it's because they were at wit's end where they needed this change, like this extreme. And then to say you need to add some fruit, I think it's very debilitating and it's kind of damaging. So yeah, I'm glad you are, sharing your message in the way you are, and sharing how like strict carnivore has healed you so much. Because that, not only are you giving the education and giving you resources, you're also sharing your testimony, and that's huge, right? Like to not have a dog around versus now having a dog all the time and being fine, like huge story, right? So in a day, like what do you typically eat now?
Well, so mostly beef. I love beef. So, and I don't really feel satisfied if I haven't eaten it in a day. So there might be a day where I'll have like chicken and I don't know, fish and like pepperoni, but I'm not going to feel like I've eaten if there's not a burger in there somewhere. So it's mostly beef. So this weekend or Friday night, I ordered out. We hung out with some friends of mine, and because of I'm in New York and Brooklyn, and because of all that's going on in the world, many streets are shut off so that restaurants can expand into the streets, and people can just sort of hang out like outside but in the street. So my block has been shut off like that for like 2 months every weekend. And so it's kind of like a little fair or festival. It's kind of cool, actually. So I brought some chairs and tables downstairs in front of my house and had friends over, and, we all had dinner together, and we ordered from a local barbecue place. And so I had brisket and pork belly. And so I know that when they smoke stuff, it does require sugar as part of the rub, and some spices and things. So I noticed that I feel a little less optimal after I eat that, and I can definitely feel it. But as you say, sometimes it is worth it. But so that's less often that I order like barbecue and stuff, and I really don't eat out often at all. Because it's just, it's too hard to get enough meat and to get it without spices and stuff. And, so it's just like, and now with, the state of the world, it's just been, I've had no problem just going to the grocery store and just cooking at home. And I don't really expect that to change very much. So.
That's good. Yeah, I feel the same way. Whenever I eat out, especially if they cooked with like toxic seed oils, I swear, and my husband thinks I'm being paranoid, but I swear it's like the toxic seed oils on the meats and there's like nothing else. But sometimes I get hives and it's like, I don't get it ever, but, and I'll show my kids and I'm like, look at this bump. It's because I had toxic seed oils in the meats. And I try to like, drive the point home that, these toxic seed oils are not good for us.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
And so when I was born, actually, the doctors told my mom I was allergic to soy and to make sure I didn't have formula. And I thought that was crazy because back in the 70s, nobody talked about allergies and stuff like that. So for them to have told my mom that at birth, that there must have been a pretty significant reaction. And but years later, soybean oil is in everything. And I noticed that, separate and apart from sugar, like if I eat sugar, straight up sugar, it's not good. But my reaction to like French fries or things that have been fried in seed oil is so much worse. I mean, my hands really swell up. My eczema flares up a lot. So I do think that they're, separate and apart from like the carb issue and the metabolic stuff. There's something about seed oils that are particularly bad, especially for me. And I don't know about everybody else, but for me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely kills and causes like chaos with your actual cells, and it causes inflammation, but it's just toxic in itself, right? So if you think about it, they have to use really, really high heat on these seeds that are naturally not supposed to even be producing oil. And then they capture the oil. And then depending on like what quality of oil you get, you may get like the first run where there's like a little bit of oil, and then they have another run where they even use even higher heat. So it's even more oxidized. And then they go through processes because some of the oils have like a rancid smell or the coloring is off. So then they bleach it and do all these like chemical reactions. And I have a graphic in my book about how canola oil is made, but there's all these processes that makes it so toxic, even beside the fact that they're seed oils. So I think that whole process, it's just, you're basically eating chemicals when you're eating these seed oils. And I think that's why, to me, it makes sense. Like, since my body is very efficient at work using foods and, using it for fuel, when I'm eating these toxic seed oils, I think my skin is saying, not happy about it. And I'm going to react. And I'm telling you, like, stop eating whatever you just ate. Right. And so I don't like personally eating out that much either because of these reasons. But yeah, it's just.
And I think that oil is everywhere. So even if you order a steak, it still somehow gets on the steak, even if they put the steak directly on the grill. I don't know. What do you think?
So I think I don't think most like steakhouses and restaurants use grills. I think they use more pan. And so when they use a pan, they use the oil. And so, people say, oh, I'll just tell them to, I'll carry my own oil and tell them to cook in it, or I'll take my butter. But where I find hesitation with that is, my husband was in the restaurant business for a long time, and they will say okay to your face and they'll just throw it out. And they're like, I don't care. You'll probably never know it was me, that type of thing. And then also like with butter, depending on how long they cook it, butter can oxidize pretty quickly. You see the flames and then it turns black in the pan really quickly. So it's just, you just always run that risk when you go to like a restaurant. But what you can say is like, hey, I have an allergy to all seed oils. Like I will have a immediate reaction and I might like faint in the restaurant, something to scare them enough that maybe then they won't use it. So I normally now say like, I cannot eat the oil, so please just cook the meat by itself. I don't know if it always works, because still sometimes I get, the hives, but I mean, that's an option. But I always say like, I'm allergic to flour, I'm allergic to sugar, and I can't do oils. So I always say that. Now, I don't know how much it holds in the back, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like too, I've had friends in the restaurant industry and they're like, you can't ask for too many things, otherwise you're going to get spit in your meal. And it's like, oh, yeah.
I know. So my husband hates that I complain, or I'm like, or I'll like, my steak's overcooked, please. And he's like, you're going to get spit in your steak. So he always says those things to me. But I think the thing is, the reality is restaurants are a business and they need to make money. And first of all, they think canola oil is a good thing, right? So, I've been to restaurants and I've asked, because like, for example, sesame oil is not bad for you if you don't cook it, right? Like a lot of it's in its more natural form, it's not oxidized, but it's expensive because it's a more cleaner oil if you don't cook with it. And so I've asked restaurants, like in Korean restaurants, the barbecue houses, they use the sesame oil. I asked, like, is this 100% pure? And they've told me no. And so that means that it's mixed with like a cheap vegetable oil, but the scent is so strong, like you think it's 100%, but it's not. And so a lot of restaurants do that. I've asked like those hibachi girls, like, okay, that looks like butter. Is it butter? And they're like, it's a blend. And I'm like, okay, so I'm eating margarine.
A butter blend? Are you
Yeah, so
kidding?
they literally, because like they kind of have this mound, so they just add margarine to it because that's how you save money, right? If you were to use avocado oil versus like canola oil, there is like a, I don't know, for every ounce, there's a several dollar difference. And so for restaurants, when they have to buy gallons of these oils, they're going to buy the cheap oils. I know this is really disgusting, but my husband made me watch this this YouTube video on gutter oil in China. So I know it sounds so disgusting because it is. They literally, because there are places in China that are really poor, but they need oil to do stir fries, and you need a lot of oil. So canola oil is considered expensive for them. So they will literally grab oil from the gutters because there's remnants, and they'll clean that. They have like these plants that clean the oil, and then they'll use it again. And people have been dying because of it. So like the government has been trying to mandate that you can't do that, but people make a living off it. So they literally open the gutter and they pull out oil, and then they refine it and I know it's so disgusting and so disturbing. And so my mom was like, I'm never eating Chinese food.
How do you make sure you don't get this? I mean, is it making it way back into restaurants or just into people's homes?
I think it's used in restaurants. And so
Oh my God.
yeah,
Oh
so
my God.
you can't even get, no, I know, but that's how so that's like a blatant example from China, but that's like you just can't trust the oils in any restaurant, right? So, I mean, that's an extreme. It's so disgusting, but I mean, that's where like money and like, trying to make a profit kind of comes into play, and it's so sad. So
That's
yeah,
why I don't even want to use, avocado or olive oil or some of these oils that people say are okay, because I'm like, I'm sure they're cut with the soybean oil. I mean,
yeah,
unless I
so
saw some lady squashing my olives and making the oil, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's soybean oil with olive flavoring.
well, so I mean, the kind of rule for marketing is you have to put on the ingredients that it's, blended. So you'll see some, so like you'll see like olive oil, mayonnaise, and you're like, oh, wow, like, or avocado oil. And then you'll see the back and it says like canola oil or soybean oil. And so that's when you know that there's something else mixed. I'm sure there are like 100% olive oils that have a little bit, but if you find the right source, you can get better versions if you can't like tolerate like animal fats, for example. But you're right. I think a lot of oils that are seed oils, you just can't guarantee, right, that they don't have a cut of something else. And I mean, it's cheaper that way, right? So one thing I noticed is we sometimes use avocado oil because the heat it's high heat at 500 something. The dark glass bottle we used to buy, now they sell like a double size one because I guess avocado oil is becoming really popular, but now it's in plastic. And my natural thought is, oh, here they're already cutting, right? So now I'm more hesitant to use avocado oil. And it's so unfortunate, but they put money over people's health, but it's just the reality of the world we live in. And so, yeah, I guess this is circling back to like, if you eating at restaurants, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I try not to. So when my family wants to go out to eat, because my husband loves eating out, I eat majority of my meal at home, and then I'll just like nibble on like some meat that they have, or sometimes I'll just go and hang out and just order some water and, hang out with them. But yeah, I see it even in my kids.
It definitely changed my relationship with food, and I kind of had to say, okay, I'm going out to hang out with people and enjoy the experience. I'm not going to eat. So
yeah, and that's so important. I think that's such an important mind shift that we need to do with carnivore, because everything socially kind of revolves around food, and it revolves around carbohydrate food. So it's really this dialogue. And that's why in the book, I talk a lot about mindset and, changing, like figuring out your why and changing your purpose around community, because people feel like, I feel left out. Like I'm the only one that can't eat carbs. It's like this woe is me feeling, but you have to change that mindset and talk and, empower yourself with, no, I know that stuff is toxic for me. I'm here for the community, and that's what matters, right? It's not about that I get to eat a piece of pie or whatever it is, right? It's so important to change that dialogue. And so how did you kind of how were you able to do that?
I mean, that was definitely a process, and it took a long time, and it's still, it's still evolving to a certain extent. So, but it really helped me to have community, and even on social media, to have other people that I followed, look at them, seeing other people having success, and that helped me to feel like I could have a bit more success as well. But once I started the Black Carnivore community, and and really started connecting and seeing other people and making friends, and people who are real friends that I expect to be friends with like the rest of my life, that kind of friend. It's that really helped to solidify that what I'm doing is the right thing, and that I have community around me that supports it. So that was really important. And and I've kind of rebuilt my world around that, where my friends and closest associates are are carnivore.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. They say that you are most like the kind of like 4 to 5 people you hang out with. And so if you are so into nutrition and taking care of your health, and you start seeing the world with the different lens, right? And then you're hanging out with people that like to party, and with a lot of like crappy foods, it's just, it makes it different. And I totally get that. I've kind of gone through that myself. And same with you, like it's been a process. Like in the beginning, I used to hide that I don't eat the vegetables. Like I'll be like, I already ate some, I'm just going to eat some meat at the party, right? But
Right.
it's a process, and it takes people like us to keep sharing our stories and educating, to then give the courage to other people. Like, hey, I remember Ede sharing her meal and what she does, and if she can do it, I can do it too. Like, look at her healing. She has a dog now, she's lost the weight, and she's thriving. She's not using her asthma inhaler, all those things. Like, that's power that then people can remember when they're in a social setting and they're like, yeah, I'm not eating the carbs, but this is more power to me because I know what I'm doing is right for my body and my health. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why what you're doing is so powerful. So what do you see yourself doing next? Are you, with your community, and, just kind of like what's going on?
Well, I definitely want to make sure that we keep the Zoom groups going. I think that is incredibly important for creating the support and community. I continue to grow the Facebook community, and letting people feel confident, having a place where they can express themselves and share. I just started my Patreon page, so I always want to create content that's free and that helps people. It helps people get started. But of course, I need help to be able to do that. So I started my Patreon page up and encourage people to to come and to support. There'll be free content there, but also content for patrons. And then I have a newsletter that I encourage people to sign up for. Just kind of a lot of different information there, going over things that are relevant to our community. And then let's see, all the different ways: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Don't contact me on Twitter though. I'm just barely able to manage the
Yeah.
Twitter. Yeah. And then I do the coaching. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. Um, there are some big, exciting changes for me personally coming up, which I will be announcing pretty soon.
Okay.
But yeah. But yeah, everything is good.
Yeah, and
Good, and we're chugging along.
I'll link to everything in the show notes, where to contact you and your resources and your Zoom. I wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of the great stuff that happened not too long ago. I wanted to talk to you about, obviously during COVID, there was a lot of stuff that happened, right? So like there's been a lot of like anger and just like emotions in the communities, and not just obviously in carnivore. And so I wanted to talk to you about sort of, like any backlash you might have received. I know Black Lives Matter was a big thing, and some people are for it, some people are against it. We don't talk about it enough, but I know it's near and dear to your heart. So I just wanted to talk to you about like, kind of like open the floor for you and talk about just, have you in your community received any like negatives in the past year?
Well, I certainly in the Black carnivore community, everyone is just like, oh my God, so glad this group is here. So glad to have this support. So, and we're picking up people all the time. So, and, the thing that's most interesting is that, there's so many people who are like, I've been doing this 6 months, a year, 2 years. So we were here in the community, just not represented or seen. So, so I feel like creating the Black carnivore community is also just an opportunity for us to be seen and to be recognized. This is certainly a problem with so many communities, but, in scientific research, so little of it is done specifically on, women or people of color. And, on our needs are not put to the forefront. And so that's what I want to do at this community. I mean, I would love to be able to do a study. We have enough people at this point to do like an actual study. And, we work closely with another low carb doctor who, is willing to be like our scientific, our faculty advisor, so to speak. So, that's something that I look forward to doing, and I think that we will do. But I do think that there are specific concerns that are for Black people around health and around specifically metabolic diseases that, we need address and we need support that we are not getting from the larger carnivore community. And I had, I put out a video about racism in the carnivore community and talking specifically about my experiences at MeatRx. That was a community I went to because I was looking to connect with other carnivores, because eating this way is so different. And so there I, did not, the experience wasn't great. And when as I had mentioned earlier, I had collected so many other Black carnivores and heard from so many other people, similar things that or reasons why that they were really unhappy at MeatRx. And so it was, I felt as someone who is now working there as a coach, like I couldn't just, walk away from that and let it go. Like it was, my responsibility as a person who's working there and as a Black carnivore to say something. And I was really surprised by how poorly, what I had to say was received, and just how it was, warped and, dismissed. I mean, if a paying person comes to you and is upset about something, like, why doesn't that matter? Like, you can take my money, but you can't be concerned about what my issues are. So that was, the biggest thing for me. And so, I was happy to go. And when talking to the rest of the community, they were like, we don't need them. Let's make our own. We can provide our own support, and it's actually better because it really does address the things that are most important. I think a lot of times people don't really understand what that means, but like, for example, stress is obviously really, very physically damaging. There's lots of studies to show that, that stress has a real impact on your physical body. And so from that, you get lots of recommendations to walk or meditate or, whatever. But those things don't take away like the real life experience of being, pulled over and murdered by a cop, or having this happen to your child, or not being able to get, the loan to buy a home. All of these things that are parts of systemic racism that create stress in the lives of Black people. None of those things are improved by meditating. Maybe we have a better ability to handle some of the stresses when we are healthier, but that doesn't take away those stresses.
Yeah.
And so for Black people, I think we need to be able to have a space where we can talk about those experiences and how we deal with them, and how we deal with health and stuff in life, and how we improve our health, knowing that there are experiences that don't go away. There are stressful experiences that don't go away. And so for us, maybe, living a stress-free life isn't incorporating more meditation. It's really trying to pull out the things that fill our bucket so that we are less able to handle the larger amount of stress that we might be facing in our lives. I don't know what that is, but those are the kinds of discussions that we can have in the Black carnivore space that we're not able to have in a larger space. And I definitely heard there were definitely people at MeetRx who were like in June, who were like, clearly these people are not, they don't have, they aren't doing carnivore, because if they did, they'd have the low carb or the zero carb Zen. And it's like, really, murdering somebody in the street, being upset about that, that's me not having zero carb Zen. Like, really?
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to tell you, I think what you're saying is really powerful, because I mean, I know it's not the same thing, but even when I first joined, and I don't know if I've ever really talked about this on any video, but when I first joined carnivore, I believed so wholly everything that the veterans were talking about, right? Like, they must know because they've done it for so long, and I'm going to follow everything to the T. And so like my beginner's guide was based on some like science that I like, the evidence-based research, but it was a lot of the kind of rules and requirements around how much you should eat and stuff stemmed from them, right? But as I did their way, it didn't work for me. So like eating 2 pounds, I think I was always kind of pre-diabetic because I was eating so many carbs. And so when I ate that much, I needed a nap after meals, and I never had that issue. My energy was just in the dumps, and I could have just given up, right? But I thought, you know what, like, I need to figure out, because my mental health is all there now, right? But I just have crappy energy. And so I had to be brave. And I said, you know what, I'm going to, and as I wrote the book, I just started getting more confidence into being like, you know what, like, their way doesn't work for me, and it might not work for a lot of people. They have a lot of truths and there's a lot of wisdom there, but just eat meat doesn't work for everybody, right? And so in that same vein as, what you're talking about, I now work with clients that are really sick, right? That the eat meat just doesn't work, right? That they need some supplementation or some healing protocol to get better. And so, people need communities that they can relate to, right? So like what you're talking about, like getting pulled over and violence, like I don't fear that, right? So like I can empathize with you, and I hear your story and how sad that must be, but I can't 100% understand, because I don't get that fear when a cop comes to me, right? So, and that's where, when you guys are talking about like your diet and carnivore, but also then talking about real life and what you're experiencing, that's what builds the community to make this diet a lifestyle, right? So I think what you're doing is so powerful. And yeah, maybe this was all kind of like God's plan in a sense, where you don't have to be part of like MeetRx or like just the kind of more mainstream ways. And you can just be a community that, so desperately needs a leader like you to then have them thrive in, in a world that you guys understand, if that makes sense. And I think I do that for a lot of eating disorder people. So a lot of people come to me for disordered eating because, somebody that has never struggled with an eating disorder and has just come to carnivore because of diabetes, let's say, they're not going to understand the mindset of like, just stop eating carbs, right? Like if you have a binge disorder, it's a lot more difficult than just saying, just stop. Like it takes someone almost that had that illness to understand. You don't understand the nightmares in my mind, right? Like I'm sitting here happily smiling, but in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, should I eat that? Should I just have a cheat day? And you're having these racing thoughts, and no one's going to get you like someone that has struggled with it, right? Or has lived it, or has worked with a lot of people and studied it. And so that's why I think maybe the divine thing was that you're supposed to create this group and build a community that people get it, right? And so I'm really glad that you, instead of just kind of being sad about it and not doing about it. It just empowers you to be like, you know what, we're going to make our own community and help people that really need to be helped. It's not about this person or that person. It's unfortunate these things are happening, and, but build your own community and make your voice stronger and then be heard that way. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about divine intervention, but, it was, it was the right thing for me to do to, really try to found this community and to provide the support for people who really need it.
Yeah.
And I hope that more people see this and continue to learn that there is another option. I've had so many people reach out and say, oh my God, I can't believe, how much racism, how much, negative talk there is in this community. And and they tell me they left, they just stopped following carnivore stuff at all. And maybe they walked away from the diet, maybe they didn't. And that's sad, because it's just another person that's going to be struggling, with their health or their weight, for much more of their life. So, I'm glad that I could create a space where, people can feel more comfortable consuming this information. But, I think that also, I mean, the nice thing about YouTube and social media is like anybody can talk and be heard. But then the bad thing about it is anybody can talk and be heard. And I take very seriously what it means to be a leader. I think that you have to be responsible for the things that you say. You have to know that people are paying attention and following what you do. And so, you have an outsized impact on other people. So you have to be really thoughtful about how it's going to be received and who is hearing it and what their circumstances are. And, and like I'm seeing clients, so I'm seeing people who are sick, I'm not seeing people who are just looking to, just optimize, maybe add 10 years to their life. So for those people, things that are wrong, it's like, oh, well, so 88 instead of 89. But, for the people that I'm talking to who need to lose 100 pounds, who are waiting to have knee replacement surgery until they lose some weight, who are struggling with, acid reflux or, brain disorders or, mental health problems. Like these are urgent concerns that really need help. And so playing around with those people's health is, I think is wrong.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. This is like, it's just something about social media. And you have to think about the core of social media where, it's somebody decides to come out and share their story or become popular. And so sometimes it's not about the people, but it's about the self trying to, become famous. I don't know. And so it's hard. It's really hard sometimes to distinguish between people that have, the people's heart at mind versus like just trying to be popular or monetize or I don't know what, but I mean, I see a lot of it behind closed doors because I work with a lot of these influencers, but it's just, it's hard. I mean, it's personally even hard for me. I don't share, like, I'm not a lifestyle blogger, right? I'm not talking about my life. I'm more about education. So I can see more than maybe like the average person. And it is heartbreaking sometimes. And I get really upset about it, but I'm not here to change social media, you know what I mean? And so I try to keep my truths, but you're right. I definitely think people should have like social obligation, but I think a lot of people don't. And that's just the sad reality of it. But the goal is that there will be people like you and me that can speak truths, and hopefully then people see, can distinguish, but, that's really, I guess, up to the audience to figure out, like what works for them and what doesn't. I know some people don't always agree with me with supplementation, and that's fine. There is a place for it for certain people. But yeah, it's just people have to find what works for them and not just like idolize someone because they seem so smart or they seem like they know what they're saying, right? So they say, do this and then do that. Cause I see that a lot. I have clients that so-and-so said to take this supplement or take this out of their diet. And so therefore they're doing it. And I'm like, I asked them like, why? Like, do you have a sensitivity to it? Are you deficient in it? And their answer is, I don't know. I read it and it made sense to me, right? And it's just,
Yeah.
it's just,
I know. I've got a closet or shelf full of supplements too. They're just gaining, dust, like
dust.
bone meal
Yeah.
powder. Like what?
Yeah, we don't need supplements in the long term. There are some people that have gut disease that may need it in the interim to kind of heal, and but in the long term, that's where meat is really its beauty is, right? So as you heal your gut and you can absorb your nutrients, the meat, that's when your meat, if you're eating the right amount and eating enough and having a good amount of fat, like that's where the magic is with meat, right? So you
Yeah.
don't need excess supplementation. Let your body do its magic. Even like with electrolytes, we don't need to be taking electrolytes long term. We definitely need a salt, and that's a huge, education piece. But we don't need to be taking electrolyte drops and powders. And I get all my clients off them because majority of them are on some magnesium, potassium, sodium blend, and I'm like, why? Right? Like, let your body find its balance. And so they end up just having some salt and maybe some magnesium spray here and there, and they're not on anything.
Wow. I got to follow up with you on that because
Yeah, yeah, I'll let you know.
that's still important. Yeah. So that's super helpful to know.
Yeah, yeah, I have this whole thing on electrolytes in the book, but yeah, I'll share with you. But I mean, the goal is really like your body has levers for everything. So I'll tell you just one thing about sodium and potassium, but there's a lever for sodium and potassium. It's a pump. And so depending on how much sodium or potassium you have in a specific cell, the pump will go either way. So it'll let sodium out or it'll let potassium in. And obviously there's other things that will impact that. But the thing is, your body's like primary electrolyte it wants to save is sodium. So if you are pumping in excess potassium in your body, you may be actually deficient in sodium and you're just masking it with potassium. The other thing is, if you don't have enough sodium in your body will first like throw out the magnesium and potassium, but it will do everything it can to save the sodium. So maybe you're not really deficient in magnesium, it's that you're deficient in sodium. So for me,
Wow.
I'm always like to my clients, take the salt. Like, I mean, so first I have them transition with like maybe some Soleil water in the morning. So just a lot of salt water in the morning. It doesn't even have to be pink salt. It could be any kind of salt you like. And then have that in the morning, let your body kind of rebalance without any electrolytes. And then like at night, use magnesium spray it on your calves so you don't have any deficiencies. And then potassium will normally balance out with those two. You don't want to really supplement with potassium because there is a risk of excess potassium in your body and it could be very dangerous. And a lot of people are normally deficient in magnesium. So if you do those two, eventually your body should balance out. You won't get like the leg cramps, the muscle weakness, and even the heart palps. Like, use the magnesium spray and let your body find its own balance. Because if the more you use exogenous electrolytes, the more your body will never find its balance because you keep introducing other nutrient or electrolytes. And then like one day of removing it, you'll feel like the muscle cramps and the weakness, right? Because all of a sudden your body's like, where is it, right? I see it all the time with my clients. I have like tests that they run, and in their questionnaire, it shows that even though they're supplementing with all these electrolytes, one of the biggest things they're deficient in is the electrolytes. And it's because I think the body is not finding its own balance. So the number one thing I always recommend with my clients is get off the potassium, stop taking the magnesium. You can until your spray works and it starts helping, but let your body do its own thing. I use zero electrolytes unless I'm fasting, which I haven't been lately, but I don't use anything. I use salt. And once in a while, if I feel like a muscle cramp is going to come on, I'm like, oh, I'm probably deficient in magnesium. So I spray some magnesium and it's done. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the spray is something, do you make that or you order it?
You can make it. I have a quick DIY online. I'll put it in the show notes, but or you could just buy it. The spray is like $12 and it lasts you even if you use it every day, I think it could last you a year.
And what about like taking an Epsom salt bath? I do that pretty often.
Okay, so that's similar. So basically what I like to call the magnesium bottle is like Epsom salt in a bath. Now, some people are allergic or like sensitive to sulfur. And so my DIY magnesium will allow you to make one without sulfur in it. But basically that's the same thing. So if you feel benefits from the Epsom salt bath, definitely do the magnesium spray. It's like
I
this.
mean, I just enjoy sitting in a
Yeah.
pool of hot water.
Yeah. No. That too, for sure. It's super beneficial, but magnesium basically allows your muscles to relax, right? So that's how after like a warm bath, you'll feel relaxed. And so, um, if you just use the spray, it'll help your muscles relax. Like sometimes heart attacks can be because you don't have enough magnesium. And so your heart wasn't able to relax and it causes that, right? So you can't really overdose on magnesium. The reason why magnesium spray works so much better than any magnesium you consume is because it goes directly through the skin, bypasses the digestive system and goes into the blood. And so that's why it's proven to help so much. There are so many people that reach out to me on social media about leg cramps at night. And I say, use a spray and it works, right? They use like the magnesium, the potassium supplements, and it's all just a waste of money. Like you help your body find its balance with the electrolytes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about in the beginning when you're first switching from like, a sad diet to keto?
Yeah, so that's where maybe like I'm not a fan of the potassium. So I have clients that really wholeheartedly believe it was the potassium. So they started adding avocados because avocados has magnesium and potassium. They started taking potassium citrate, I think, and they still have all the heart palps, the leg cramps. And so in the beginning though, if you want to take like the LMNT, the keto chow, any of those electrolyte drops, that's fine. I think it'll help balance a little bit easier because you are having an imbalance. All of a sudden your glucose molecules are releasing. And so you're releasing a lot of water. The electrolyte imbalance is very real. So in the beginning, yes, if you want to use some drops, that's fine. But as you are like maybe 3 months acclimated at least, then maybe just try the salt waters in the morning. So maybe have like a big cup of salt water. And then, but even you should get off that. So like, that's like the kind of baby step transition. And then after that, like I literally do not drink any of that in the morning. I drink water. And then, if I sweat a lot, or if I, move a lot, or I haven't been drinking enough, that's when, or if I drink a little bit too much water, then maybe I'll add a little bit of salt, but I just heavily salt my meats and that's it.
Yeah. I find that water tastes better when it's salted or
Oh yeah,
has a
yeah.
little bit of salt in it.
Yes.
So, especially like sparkling water, like I really like it with salt in it. So I'm probably leaning in more there. I don't know if that's just an indication, like I just have a greater need of salt or what.
So it can be, the way that our pH is in our body, if you add a little bit of salt, it actually can probably better absorb. So this is one thing I think I wrote in the book is like, when we drink purified water and all those like reverse osmosis water, the water is kind of dead. And so when you're drinking it, your body, because of the pH is all like it's off, or, the water is dead, all our body is like just a bunch of chemical reactions. So that dead water. So when you're drinking like Dasani, I think Dasani actually adds some minerals back, but when you drink like purified water, and it's literally dead with no molecules or with no like of those minerals, it'll leach it from your body to balance the water. So
Right.
it actually instead of hydrating you, it actually steals electrolytes from your body. So it's just really wild. So that's where I think adding salt to water can actually hydrate you better because the kind of absorption of it is actually better for you.
Okay. So maybe, well, so I guess I wonder, it depends on where you are, what your tap
Yes.
water is like, whether you maybe need more or less of the electrolytes added to them.
Yeah. It depends on your area, but I really think if you were to just start, if you first, go low carb, if you want to use some of the electrolytes, that'll help, but make sure to
Mhm.
get enough salt. And, the switch from a normal standard American diet's amount of salt versus the salt we eat now, it's different. It's a big mind shift change, right? And so we need to do that. But a lot of people aren't used to that much salt. So they're like, whoa, it's a lot of salt. It's really salty. So I think maybe initially use some of the electrolytes, then as you progress, try the salt in the morning, but I think the magnesium spray will help a ton. And then
Gotcha.
as time passes, the goal is really like by 6 months, you should not be using anything. If you are clean carnivore, if you are like having weekends where you go back to the standard American diet, you will have to keep recalibrating that homeostasis.
Gotcha. All right. Good to know.
Yeah. Let me know if it works. I mean, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
huge shifts for people in terms of this.
Yeah. Well, so for me, hydration is something I like always struggle with. And when I try to fast, it's like that's the first thing that's a problem for me. And
Yeah.
in fact, I've dry fasted because it's
Oh.
easier to drink nothing and the hydration stays the same
Mhm.
than it is to drink water through it. Because then I never stay in the right place and I
Got it.
always get I I don't even know what the problem is. It's either too much or too little. I don't know.
The rule of thumb with hydration is typically like half of your body weight or half of your ideal body weight in ounces. So if you're like 150 pounds, it should be like 75 ounces. And then if you drink like coffee or any other diuretic, it's another 1 to 1.5 ounces. So if you drink 8 ounces of coffee, let's say, then it's another 8 ounces of water to 12 ounces of water more. So it is a lot of water. It's hard for me to even drink a lot of water, but we need to, especially since we're not eating meats that have a ton of water in it, right? So vegetables you can get away without drinking a lot of water because like celery is a lot of water, right? Watermelons have a ton of water in it, but meat doesn't have it. And so that's why I think some carnivores, especially the veterans, like they can look kind of dried out. It's maybe they're not drinking enough water. I really stress water with my clients. You need to make sure, now don't guzzle it all at once. That's a taxation on your kidneys, right? Like you don't want to have your kidneys like flush out 12 ounces of water all of a sudden. You want to kind of sip it through the day. Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's hard. It's a mind shit habit change. What you can do, which some of my clients I do, is get a new water bottle and then have it by your desk. And then it reminds you, like, you have to drink 3 of those in a day. And so since it's right in front of you, it's like, in your mind, and then you'll do it. And so just sip it through the day and then make sure to just get through 3. And having that kind of new object in front of you may be a reminder and it'll kind of shift the habit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's super helpful for most people, especially those who struggle with getting enough water in. Yeah. So, wow, you are a wealth of information. So I assume all of this is in your new book and I can look there and find it.
I definitely talk about water because it's so important. There's a part of hydration and how you should hydrate a little bit earlier than when you work out. Like you don't want to hydrate right before you go work out because it's not going to get to your cells fast enough. You should actually like drink 30 minutes before. Oh, another way to really get your electrolytes in the beginning, and assuming you don't have any gut health issues, is bone broth. Bone broth is a huge way you can do the proper electrolyte. I totally forgot about that. But all of this is in the book. I mean, I really try to cover these like common FAQs. And there's a whole FAQ section in the book too. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, what would be your advice for those watching, as we're concluding? I know we talked about so many different things. Like, what are some, what is something you'd, want for the community to know or, learn about you?
Well, I mean, I think really the most important thing is I really care about doing a carnivore diet and helping people to get healthy. I certainly suffered a long time with my weight and with my health, and to discover that it was all unnecessary. I didn't have to go through any of it. That really sucks, and I'm hoping to save anybody else, save them from years of struggle and ill health when they don't need to. And I have so many family members and people that I can see just need to do this diet and are not ready to, don't want to, are too addicted to sugar to be able to do it. So, my goal is really just to provide a place for people who are, if they're willing to give it a try, to have the support that they need to do it. And that's what I'm committed to doing. So I welcome new people to the community. So come on in. You can follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube, find more information about, how to get involved and how to get the support, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll have, again, all your information in the show notes. And is it like a specific Zoom dial-in that people can join your call, or is it like
you get that? You get the information once you go through the Facebook groups. You have to
Oh, okay,
join
okay.
the Facebook group first.
Okay, so I'll get all the links for that, and then people can join. But thank you so much for joining me today. This has been
Sure.
really fun, and like I want my channel to just be honest and just share. And so like I appreciate your openness and just being real and being who you are. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me on. It really has been wonderful, and I'm excited to get to meet some of your followers and for you to meet mine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
All right, great.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned a lot about Ede and the community that you may not know as much about. All right, guys, you know the drill. Make sure to eat a lot of meat. Take care of your bodies because it is the only place you have to live. Take care. Bye.